Okay. So this week we are going to look at how to group information from a table into groups and how to filter those groups by conditions, and also how to run a select query within another select query. And we're going to see how we can make this as easy as possible. In MySQL, we use a clause we call group by. Within group by like this, to group rows with the same values into like a summary. So if you have like a whole table of data, you want to know, for instance, let's say you have a whole table of information with people picking their favorite meal, and you want to know the number of people who said they prefer to eat bread, or the number of people who said rice. The group by clause is something we use to do something like that. Let's look, for instance, at the film table. Let me select all from film and let's see what we have there. So on this film table, we have the film ID, title, description, release year. We have the rating. Let's say we want to calculate the number of films that are rated PG, or we want to get the number of films that are rated in any different category. So things like that. Let's try that using the group by clause so we can see how the group by clause is used. So we write the statement just like we write a select statement. Let's say all we want out of the table is the rating column. So we say select rating, and we use an aggregate function called count to get a total, or we can use sum. So let's say select rating, count the number of film IDs. So we're not adding, so we want to count, so we use count as the aggregate function. If, for instance, we are getting like want to get the total of something, then we can use the sum aggregate function. So we say select rating, count, film ID, and we can alias this as, let's say, total films or something like that. Total film from the film table. And what we want to do with this is to group the number of movies in each rating category. So we'll say group by, and the column we want to group by is rating. So the syntax again is to select the column names that you want, you list them, and use an aggregate function called count to say count the total, count all of the film IDs that are selected from this group of different ratings. So it should give me a whole table with one column of ratings and one column of the total number of movies in that group of ratings. So when I say go, I have the rating G have 178 total movies, PG have 194, and things like that. So this is how we try to aggregate things and group things by a common column. So if it's just like frequency in mathematics, you want to see the number of people that chose a particular thing, the number of people, so we use group by clause on that particular item whose frequency we want to get. Is this topic straightforward?
Sorry, Mildred. No, this is Victor. So I just got a bit lost when you mentioned the reason for the counts. Just your last explanation. You were saying something about select rating. You said something about count.
So we are counting the film ID. We're looking for a column to count. Okay, I'll repeat this. Let's select all from film first. Then we'll just investigate what the table looks like. So we'll have a film ID column, and this film ID column we have is just like a serial number, right? And it's like each row. So once you count it and say, if you put one film ID into the group, count it as 1, 2, 3, 4. We have aggregate functions in MySQL, and count is one of the functions that when you say count this column, it's going to count the number of rows in the column. And that's why we use the count function. And so that's why I say select rating. And then I want to select film ID. but I don't want the film ID selected. I want it to count the number of film IDs in the category I'm looking for. So I'll use the count aggregate function. So count is written count, and in a pair of parentheses, you put the column you want to count. Okay. So I'm selecting rating, selecting the film ID, but I want it to count the film ID and not just return the film ID, count the number in a particular group. So I'm getting it from film, and I want to group it by the rating. I'm using the count because I am grouping. Okay, so count the number of films in each group of the ratings that we have. Is it clear?
Yes, it is now.
Okay, and so this will now give you all the ratings and the total number of films in that category of rating. But sometimes you will group these things and you still want to filter, have a filter condition. Let's say, for instance, we want to group by something else and still have a condition after grouping by. Let's say, for instance, let me use a different example. We have the release year column from the film. Let's see what other columns we have. I want a realistic example. Okay, we have a release year. Let's try to use this. So let's say I want to have a condition after grouping. So I'll say select rating, count film ID, let me put an alias, has total film, and I'm selecting this from the film table, and I want to group it by release year this time. If you want to have a filter condition on the return groups, we use the having clause like this. So group by release year, and I want to say having something like rating is equal to PG. Something like this. So you can run a select query, group them, get a frequency, and then you can use the having clause to say having a particular column less than 2, less than 3. So having is just like you are filtering with the where clause, but you use it with a group by to filter, or you use it to set a condition on the groups that we have returned. So let's see if this works. And then we have the total film rated PG is 1000 because we just told it to give us group it by release year, but having rating PG. This is not the best example, but this gives you an idea of how we use group by and having clause. So if you can go through all of the tables and investigate the tables, and you now decide you want to play around and run different queries to see can I get all of the customers, join the tables to see the amounts they've spent, and I want to filter the ones who have spent above a particular amount of money. Those kind of examples you can do. So the syntax is what you need to pay attention to. Select the column names or use asterisk as all. So if you don't want to select just columns, you want an asterisk. If you're not aggregating, you just use asterisk. Select all from the table name, group by the column you want to group by, having the condition you want to specify. And that is the syntax. Is that clear?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay. So this is how we use group by and having. We can run many examples, but this is the basic idea. So we'll move into subqueries. And a subquery is like having a select statement within another select statement. You're having nested statements where you want the inner one to run, and the result of the inner one is going to feed into the outer one. Let's do an example. Let's see what tables we can use. Let's look at the address table. Select all from address. So we have address table having, this is a foreign key, having a city ID. So let's look at the city table. Select all from city. Okay, so we can say we want to run a query so that we want to select all the addresses where the city ID is found in the city where, let's say for instance, the country ID is greater than 90, for instance. So we want to have a condition. We want to select city ID from city where country ID is greater than 90. Let's do that first. Select city ID from city where country ID is greater than 90. And let's see what this produces. So we have only the city ID displayed. We can decide to select both city ID and the country. Let's see the columns again. So we can select the city ID and the country ID so that we can see it clearly. So we select city ID, country ID from city where country ID is greater than 90. So we can look at country ID and we can confirm that everything is greater than 90 here. So we don't want to see the country ID. We now know that it is doing what we want it to do. But we want to have another condition, and we want the condition to get its result from the result of this query. So select city ID from city where country ID is greater than 90. We want to put this in bracket like this. We want to say this should run, but it should feed another query. So it should be an inner query to something else. And we want to select everything from the address table where the city ID is found in the results returned from this. So what we'll do now is to write another select query outside of this. Select all from the address table where the city ID in, so we'll use in like this, the result of this query. So this is what we call a subquery. When you have a query, but you want an outer query to take its result from the result of an inner query. So we want to just get only the addresses from the address table where the city ID is found in the result of this query. And when I say go, and I get it like that. So we get that like this. Now, one of the use cases of things like this, and subquery is something you will use, especially for data analysis, if we have several tables that handles different information. Maybe I have a table that holds the gender of patients, for instance. I have a table that holds the gender identity of patients, the age group of the different ages of patients. And it's now time for me to do a visualization and I want to run queries. I can use subqueries like this to say, I want to get all of the males, all of the people whose gender is male, but they are between ages 0 to 4. Then I have an inner query, select all from maybe the gender table where gender is equal to male. Then I have an outer query that says select all from age, right? Where the age is between 1 and 4, and the gender in the inner query where I select the gender. So this is where all of this comes in. It will be difficult to explain this without multiple examples, but I want you to go through the different tables and try to run inner queries. Give yourself scenarios and tell yourself you want to get a result of something and you want to get a result from that result. So that's just the whole concept of the subquery. Is it understood?
Sorry, I want to ask a question. And my understanding of the subquery is that you want to execute a task from the result of another task.
Yes.
So is it a possibility, or can you get the same result if you don't want to do it? So I know it's fine. The subquery thing, yes, it's lovely. But for example, I say select all from address. Okay. What am I saying? If you just give the two commands in one query line, will it give the same result? Sorry, my kids are.
You might end up having errors because so there are different ways. You can actually use join to get what you want to get, but the subqueries make it easier and cleaner.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's so what you can do with subquery, you can actually do with joins, but then that's where your database administration skill comes in. What is better? What has more performance? Which are you supposed to use? Which is best suited for this purpose?
So in essence, this subquery works for like multiple tables.
Yes, for multiple tables. It works for multiple tables. It's even less confusing than joins. You just want to say, okay, I'm getting everything from that table, then I'll filter, I'll use another select. So you can have several embedded selects. Even with this, I can still have another select within this. You can have up to 4 layers of inner queries.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Any other person with a question?
Sorry, maybe I think it might be clearer if we can just treat one example that has 2 tables.
Okay, this has 2 tables actually, address and city tables. Okay, another one that has like 3 tables, right?
No, I thought that this was one table,
No, this is 2 tables.
Okay. I was hoping that you said select all from this to show us one table first, then before you now start doing the column and row selections. But you went into the column selections, and I know you went back to select all from city and all that. So okay, this is 2 tables and it worked just fine. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. But when we practice more on our own, we get the hang of it.
So always start with the inner query. Tell yourself what you want to get first. Okay, let's say for instance, I want to get everybody whose gender is male, for instance. I'm not going to think about the other conditions of saying I want to get all the males whose age is greater than 24. I just want to select all from the gender table where the gender is male first. Then that will be an inner query. I'll put it within braces, and the outer query, I will now say select all from maybe the age table where age is between 1 and 4, and then you now put your maybe and gender in, or and something in, any condition you want to put here, but you put in, then a pair of parentheses, the inner query comes. It's a logic you have to think through by having different scenarios. I try to use a different scenario in the live than what you have in the pre-recorded video, so that you can have different examples to work with and think about. We can look through different tables. You can investigate the different tables and see what is there, and you can say select maybe select first name and last name from the actor table where the actor ID in maybe a different place or in a film category or something. So you just know how to combine the tables. You look at the different tables, look at common rows or common columns, look at what condition you want to filter by. How can you get your result, your main result now, the result from the outer query, based on what is in the inner query without having to go through the whole table. So it's like telling yourself, I want to, okay, let's give a real life scenario. So the real life scenario is like you have a classroom filled with 50 students, right? And you don't want to go through the 50 students grade to see from these 50 students, you want to just take all 50. It's too much work, right? You want to just take the top 5. And then you all just want to say, out of this top 5, pick the top 3, instead of out of the 50, pick the top 3. So you're now saying select maybe the top 5 from the class in the inner query, And then the outer query will say, select the top 3 from the top 5. So I don't know if that makes it a little easier. So those are the kind of scenarios.
Yeah, that's a lot easier. The scenario you painted.
Yes. So those
that's
are
selecting the top 3 from the top 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of selecting the top 3 from the top 50. So, but most times when you use subqueries, you do it across tables too. It can be from the same table. It can be across table. You can use it to insert into it. And as we go deeper and advance, we'll do more complex subqueries. But you need to get the concept first before we go deeper. If not, it gets easily confusing. Okay. So these are the topics we have for this week. I don't know if anybody has any more questions.
I want to ask this on behalf of one who's confused. Can we have a subquery without foreign key? Without foreign column?
Yeah, you can have a subquery without a foreign key, but you just like joins, where sometimes you need something we call a predicate that is common between the two tables, right? You can have a subquery without a foreign key or without a common table, but it now depends on your scenario. What are you looking for? If there is I don't know how to explain this. The short answer is yes, and the long answer is it is complicated. So you can have it without a foreign key, but it still depends on the scenario.
Okay. Sorry, for those of us who are learners, foreign key meaning a common column amongst tables, right?
We'll do foreign key in week 7. Foreign key means that you have one parent, right? You have a parent.
I know Edmond, you taught me, in my session with you mentioned foreign key, but some of us, some things don't just sit, they fly away. So I'm trying to catch it back now. So foreign key is sorry, you are explaining, Mildred.
Okay, so foreign key is like you have one table that is the parent. In that table, like this actor table, the actor table has the actor ID. Now, across other tables, you don't want to repeat yourself and specify actor IDs anymore. So you now make actor ID the parent here on the actor, and every other table that uses actor ID now uses it as a foreign key from the actor table. So when I come to film actor table, you have the actor ID is a foreign key. So you see that when you click on it, it goes straight back to the actor table to tell you which actor it is. So what it does is that it keeps the integrity of the table. You're not repeating things twice. You list it one place as actor ID, and every other place I need to use it. Like if I go to film actor, I don't need to specify anything. If I specify actor ID, it gives me like a reference, like the key to all of the information about that actor. So it's now a foreign key. So when we create tables, we do that in week 7, where we do how we create foreign keys and how we make foreign keys and link our tables and make sure we keep to the ACID properties. But for now, that's like the easiest definition I can give you is that you have, I'll give you a real life example. You are a man, you have children, 4, 5 children, 6 children. Your last name is a foreign key to all your children. When you want to trace back to the roots, the family tree, you call that last name. It goes back to the first person in the family. Where do they come from? That's exactly what it is. So all your children are like the foreign keys to you.
Okay.
So it's easier, right?
Yeah, a lot easier that way.
So we use real world examples. Okay, any other person with question? Okay, in the absence of question, this is all the topic for this week. Again, if you have any problem, you want a one-on-one session, you contact any of the admin on the WhatsApp group. Primarily, you contact Edmond. He is the one who is best to take one-on-ones, especially for your regions. And yes, we'll meet next week, and it will get more complex. And so when we have weeks with shorter topics, you want to try to do more examples and go back and revise the examples from week 1 and 2, because we need all of this in part 3 of the course, where you will need to use SQL within Python. All right. So thank you, everyone, and have a blessed weekend.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.